Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Where are
Good.
you? You look
I'm
really.
outside. It's a beautiful day, and I
Yes.
was I was at an all-day meeting, and I thought, you know what? Rather than sit in my car, we're going to go across the street to this beautiful park and bring it live from the outdoors.
That looks
So,
amazing. I want to be where
yeah,
you are.
yeah. So hopefully the noise is okay. The lighting's not so bad, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's we're doing it. So
looks
the
great. Well,
show must go on, and we're doing it.
I hope my kids don't interrupt us. They are currently out of the house, but who knows when they'll
Well,
be coming
that's
back in.
another
So,
thing. I could have gone home and then the kids would have been a variable. So now it's just other people's kids
yeah.
who actually, here come three of them.
Oh, wow, my kids.
It's an ice cream kind of day. So they're all preoccupied with their ice creams.
Nice.
But yeah. All right. Well, as folks are starting to join us, we've got to say, Dr. Brita, we're coming full circle here. You were our very first Instagram Live on our Toolbox series. So new that we didn't even know how to record and share the Instagram Lives. So our first, it's like a tree in the forest. If it falls, did it
Did it
really
even
fall?
happen?
So so this is our opportunity at Redemption to actually record and share this with everyone. Those who were able to join us the first time, I know that we had a very good session and very informative. So hopefully we can help others with the insights that you have through your pediatric physical therapy journey and answer a lot of the specific questions that we received, which is awesome. So thank you everyone for submitting your questions. Why don't we go ahead and kick it off with you telling us a little bit about yourself and how you found your journey to where you are today.
Sure. So I'm Dr. Brita. I'm a pediatric physical therapist. I have worked in pediatrics for my entire career, which spans about 11 years now. And while I have worked in pretty much every setting under the sun when it comes to pediatrics, including hospitals and outpatient clinics and early intervention, throughout those 11 years, I have slowly kind of niched down to our youngest kids. Because I am just so passionate about helping get them all off on the right foot when it comes to development. And the space that I have found myself in currently with the practice that I started, which is called Progress Through Play, is really focusing on empowering families to be curious about their kids' development and have a deeper understanding of everything that's going on. I think that it really helps just build a deeper connection between parents and their children when they understand what's going on with them. And so that has brought me into the kind of Instagram space where I can do a lot of that education to a wider audience, which is great. But I do still provide my pediatric physical therapy services locally in Denver, which is where I live. And I have my own two kids, which keep me very busy as well, but they're big now. They're almost 8 and 6. So that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I think that's a very important point that you raised because I think so much of parenthood, especially if it's the first time and even second time, just because you're so busy with two, it's a lot of reaction rather than like proactivity.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes a lot of sense because I think from 32,000 feet view, I guess the overarching question is my child developing on track, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And that's something where, there are those who go out and research it and really, worry about it. And then there are those who kind of let it happen. And then I guess the question that I think for all those who didn't submit a specific question, but I think would be front of mind is, when should I worry? And if there's any general kind of rule of thumb that you have in your space as a physical therapist, and what you've seen is maybe some advice to the parents who are like, yeah, I think we're doing okay, but when should I worry?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's no wrong or right way to be as a parent. Like you said, some are, kind of reading up on all the things and wanting to crave that kind of extra in-depth knowledge on certain things. And some parents are really go with the flow and they're like, whatever happens, I'm just going to let it happen. And there is nothing wrong with either one of those approaches.
No, and some persons both.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
first kid, second kid,
somewhere in the middle, or based on how your child is. But what I tend to do when parents come to me with questions like that is, number one, let them know that although I am an expert in pediatric development, they're the expert in their child first and foremost. So if you have those little nagging questions or those gut feelings about something, you deserve answers to that, regardless of whether or not your child is actually delayed or there's actually a big red flag or anything like that. You still deserve to have an expert validate your concerns, tell you why they may or may not be concerned, if they're in agreement with what you see or not, and explain all of that to you and give you some peace of mind. So I think all parents deserve that. And then the other piece of that puzzle is that every child and their development looks different. So there is no one size fits all, even though we do have checklists, from the CDC. Those are really big picture. They are to help us kind of catch anything that might potentially turn into, an issue that may need extra support. But it doesn't inform us about the specific child sitting in front of us, because what I'm more concerned about, or what I'm more interested in, not concerned about, what I'm more interested in is, what does your child look like today versus what they were able to do a week ago, a month ago, 6 months ago, etc., than how they compare to a generic checklist. So if a parent comes to me and they say, well, this checklist says they have to be sitting up by 6 months and my baby's not sitting up, I'm like, well, that doesn't tell me anything. I need to know what your baby can do. I need to know when your baby did X, Y, and Z. And so I want parents to not get caught up in that milestone anxiety, just looking at, an arbitrary checklist, which they are, like I said, very helpful in helping us kind of inform those conversations and get them started. But I don't want it to ever cause like crazy anxiety in parents. We need to just have a deeper discussion when it comes to that.
Right. So it'd be safe to say is parents, for them to trust their gut, and when addressing that, little concern or question, check with pediatrician, be the first kind of checklist person in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So pediatricians are definitely our front line and can often, quickly help answer some of these questions. The other part of that is sometimes, especially if you're having, your normal well-child appointment, there's a lot of other stuff they also need to be addressing, and they may not, as much as they want to, have the time to go in depth into some of this. So you can absolutely check in with them. And then if you feel like you need a more elaborate answer or some more supports, come to someone like myself. You can also come directly to us. In most instances, you don't have to go through a pediatrician first to see a pediatric PT, OT, or speech therapist. But our pediatricians are really good at kind of figuring out, helping us, the families that need to come see us, getting to us. But yeah, I want parents to know that if they have those nagging questions, they deserve to have somebody help answer it without having to do like a Google, rabbit hole deep dive where it can get scary.
Yeah, exactly. Google diagnostics. Yeah.
Yes, they deserve.
I'm guilty.
Like the peace of mind is not going to come from a Google search.
Well, that's good to know. Good to know that they can go people like you without necessarily, a prescription, so to speak. So that's good insight. Okay. Well, that's all good news. I think it's, child-centric, child-driven, specific to the child, because they are who they are, the little individuals on every front, right? Physical, emotional,
all of it,
everything.
I think it's so apparent as soon as you have a second child. Not that everybody needs to have a second child, but that second child just kind of like hits you. Oh my gosh, how different they can possibly be when they both came from, the same place. But it just helps you to kind of reframe your mindset and your thinking and just get curious about who they are as like a little person and what motivates them and what their timeline looks like, and just be able to enjoy it without that unfortunate like anxiety that kind of our culture kind of drives for
Yeah, I
newborns.
guess, I mean, we all get why there are guidelines, but they're like guardrails. And then, I think the other message that I think is really important for parents is if there is that little, nagging thought, to not be afraid to address it, but to actually act on it.
Yeah.
And either it resolves itself because you seek out, experts who say, oh no, we're good, we're and then the next week they might be walking or what have you.
Yeah.
But to not be afraid, but to embrace it, because the sooner, in my experience, and we've been through the early childhood intervention, where they want to catch them before they're 3 and give them as much extra support as possible. But it's really, it benefits everyone to empower little minds and little bodies and adult minds and bodies to give them the support they need. So I think that's a takeaway that I've learned firsthand, which was a journey for me to
Yeah.
embrace that don't be afraid of it, lean into it, and everyone benefits.
And I think there's just also historically been a negative stigma around anybody who needs extra support, which is very unfortunate, but it really, it gives some parents that pause or that hesitancy to reach out and make that first step. It seems scary, or it seems daunting, or what are they going to tell me about my kid,
Right.
But instead, you're creating a village of people that care about your child and your family and supporting you guys. And I hope that the more resources that we offer families and the more proactive we are, that we will help kind of normalizing getting support, and that negative stigma will end. Because we do know, I mean, study after study has shown the earlier the intervention, the better the outcomes.
Better the results.
And so, globally, we need to improve our access to those services and like all these things that, are barriers to families being able to get what they need. But that negative stigma needs to not be.
No, I hear you. It reminds me of what my mom says, is when you know better, you do better. And that's, kind of my mantra as a parent, because, the whole point of this Toolbox series is we don't know what we don't know. We're, Prince Lionheart, our mission is to provide for life's grand improvisation, which is parenting, which we're winging it, right? We're all winging it, totally winging it. They send us home with a baby and we're like, what the heck? I felt more prepared to get married than I did to have a baby. Because, that's just how it was. And granted, times change and there's more availability on the internet and all that, but there's a lot of scary stuff on the internet. So anyway, I think, be proactive and listen to your intuition as a parent, because you're right. We do know our babies better than anyone else. Let's jump over to some specific questions, because there are a lot of folks who have joined us and they've actually taken the time to reach out with specifics that they're working on in their households. And let's see if we can help them with some answers. First one is how to help their baby in a sideline for play instead of rolling out of it.
Okay, yes, I remember this question. So I post a lot about variety of positioning for play for babies. And it's key for them to just be able to experience being on their backs, being on their tummies, being on their sides, being held, all of it. And so oftentimes we get questions about, well, how do I make my baby stay laying on their side? And it kind of depends on how old your baby is. In the beginning, so you can start laying them on their sides to play from the very beginning. From about 0 to 3 months, they may be better at kind of just staying there and playing if you give them some support and maybe you put a mirror or a toy in front of them. But pretty soon your baby's going to get more wiggly, right? They're going to have more control over their body. They're going to want to start learning how to roll. And the whole point of us putting our babies in sideline position is that then they can start using that position when they're rolling and they are not, alarmed that all of a sudden they're on their sides and they've never been there before. We're setting these expectations and we're laying the groundwork early. So if this person who submitted this question has a baby who's more in the 3 to 5 month range, use sideline more as a functional transitional position than making baby stay there for a long time. Your job, I mean, you don't have to, but your job now, if you're implementing sideline, is to show baby how to use it with movement. So kind of our goal in mind in the beginning is to set the stage for rolling. So now we can use that sideline position. Maybe you just pause for a second in between back and tummy and show them how they can kind of control that movement, and then roll over onto their belly, and then do it again when you roll them back out and kind of pause, use that sideline position to help them kind of gain that control to roll over. But they don't have to stay there for a super long time once they get to that stage. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like a means to an end. It's part of the movement process to getting on your belly or your back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. When should I be concerned that my baby isn't pulling to stand?
Again, this is another one where there's a lot of other questions I want to know. And, you know, we do on our checklists have this one around 12 months of, you know, we're looking towards walking. We want to start bringing baby, you know, up onto their feet so that we can start making sure that we're getting all the pre-walking skills in order, so that we kind of stay on track with our walking.
Yeah.
The big things that we want to see in terms of preparing our babies for standing is, number one, that when we start kind of just holding them or supporting them, kind of just standing up in your lap maybe, or just on the floor, at around 6 months that they will fully kind of bear weight through their legs and they're not resistant to you kind of placing them and standing. So that's a good kind of marker to watch for. And then, you know, after they start getting mobile on the floor, so belly crawling, they're going to be able to start getting to surfaces to pull up on, right? And so that's the whole, you know, means to an end in terms of like, why do I want a baby to crawl? Well, eventually it's just so that they can get somewhere to start standing, because eventually a baby's whole goal in that first year of life is to get upright. Every little step of their development is leading up to being upright and standing. So we want to give them those opportunities to be able to explore the environment enough to start experimenting with, can I pull myself up here? Can I pull myself up there? So we want to be giving them lots of different, you know, heights of surfaces to try and pull up on. You know, maybe it's your diaper box, maybe it's the step stool in the bathroom, maybe it's your couch with the cushions thrown off, and just making sure their environment is conducive to that skill. So hopefully that answers that question.
I actually remember, I think from our first conversation, that you made a really keen observation is here we're trying to help our kids get to that standing, walking objective. And sometimes you need to make it more interesting to be up there. Like put their toys
Put
up
all the
higher,
toys up.
as
Raise
opposed
the toys
to
up.
putting their toys on the ground, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of those aha moments, like, well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right? But I remember you saying that. I'm like, well, duh. I mean, but I didn't think about that. It's like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Thing.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but raise those toys up. Put them up
make
on
it
the
more
coffee table,
interesting.
up on the couch.
Sure, yeah. Okay. All right. Someone's looking for tips to help baby crawl.
Okay, so here's the other one. After your baby learns to master sitting, sometimes sitting becomes easy. Once you've mastered it, it's a pretty static skill, right? You're just sitting. You don't really have to do a lot of engaging different parts of your body. And they can see all around, and they're kind of upright after being on, you know, their backs or their tummies for a long time. Yeah. Sometimes we have to give a little bit of extra motivation to kind of get them out of that, you know, kind of happy sitting stage, which it's great for parents because the kids are typically pretty content once they can like sit up and see what's going on. So start challenging them a little bit, right? So don't hand them all of their toys right in front of them anymore. You know, start moving them off to the side, back behind them, out of reach, to start seeing if they'll, you know, transition from sitting down onto their tummy. Introduce toys that might roll away from them when they go to get them. So balls and things that kind of trigger that little extra bit of motivation to start putting those pieces together and understanding that their bodies can move. So I always say, you know, get the balls or get the rolling toys. And then when they get down onto the floor, it's okay to show them a little bit of the movement before, you know, they're able to fully put it all together themselves. You can facilitate it. You can do a little bit of like, you know, kind of helping their knees move forward, or, you know, putting your hand behind their foot to give them a little bit something to like launch off of. Yeah. Once they start feeling what their bodies can do, it kind of helps that brain-body connection to just have that light bulb moment of like, oh, this is why I like have been working on rolling and pivoting and all these other skills, because now I get to put that all together for a purpose. And you know, some kids are more stubborn, some may need a little bit extra boost to get there, but I'm really big on kind of helping to set up the environment to be conducive to the skill that we're looking for in our kids. And like you said, with the standing, you know, we're putting our toys up high. Well, for crawling, I'm going to start putting our toys out
farther away.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Bright and shiny objects.
Yes.
Remote controls were good for us because they actually, there's a cause and effect. You push a button, it lights up, and it's like, oh, this is what I see mom and dad holding.
Absolutely. And every kid's going to have that thing, the one thing that you know that they just want. You know, whether it's some yogurt melts or a sibling's toy, you know, big brother's toy or whatever it may be. But again, none of this necessarily needs to be rushed, you know, but if you're looking for just purposeful play ideas or how you can be engaged with your child based on the stage that they're at right now, like meeting your child where they are, these are the types of tips that I, you know, kind of start to give. It's like, here's what we're going to want to,
you know, it's really, it's funny because I remember my husband's really good about, like, if, you know, our child wasn't yet walking or crawling, he was really good on, like, you know, the weekends. He would say, okay, we're going to practice this. And he would actually physically go through the motions with them and, you know, make them practice it. I'm like, and I was like, gosh. And then they would start getting it because, you know, it was like triggering their mind and their body to work together and figure it out. And I'm like, that's so awesome. I was so busy, like, just like I keep them alive during the week. Yeah. And, you know, you come, you know, in the knight in shining armor, and he starts practicing what you know, it's like, that's awesome. But it helps so much. And I remember seeing that with both crawling and walking, that my husband's like, okay, we're going to do this. And he just, purposeful play is what, it's very helpful. At least in our lives, I saw it make such a difference, a concerted effort with our little ones. Okay, so someone's got a 7.5-month-old who loves tummy time and is wondering if they need to encourage playing on their back.
If your 7.5-month-old is capable of rolling both ways, so back to tummy, tummy to back, they get to choose. That's the whole point, right?
Freedom.
Yeah, the freedom. The reason, so if we go back to the beginning where I was talking about the variety and positioning, I call it rotisserie, like a rotisserie chicken for your baby. Yeah. But like cooking them on all sides by giving them this variety of play positions, this is the whole end game, right? Is that then they have the strength and all the different muscles to move in all these different planes, and they can be empowered to move themselves in and out of positions. Yeah. So what happens once a baby learns to roll in all directions, they realize that being on their back is boring. I can't go anywhere on my back, right?
Right.
When they're younger, being on their back's important. It's where they develop, you know, the beginning of their head control. It's where they develop a sense of midline, bringing things to their mouth, reaching and grasping for toys. There's lots of stuff going on their backs when they're little. At this stage, you're like, oh, back is boring. I can't go anywhere, can't see anything.
Right.
So this is great. This is normal. And so this is what should happen, is that your baby should realize now you shouldn't have to, you know, kind of enforce tummy time as much as you did in the beginning. Babies start to choose to be on their bellies because it's how they can become mobile. So great job.
Yeah.
That's exactly where we want them to be.
Cool. All right. Do you have any, let's see, good toys for a 4-month-old for reaching and grasping? Do you have any favorites?
Yeah, I mean, literally it could be anything. You can grab something from your kitchen, but the idea here is that in the beginning, they're not going to be very accurate, right? So something that they can be successful at even without a lot of accuracy. My favorite is the little O balls. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They have a bunch of little holes in them.
My dogs like them too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
They're very cheap, but because they have so many little holes in them, the little fingers can very easily kind of get in there and grasp without a lot of accuracy.
Yeah.
So that's a simple one, but really anything.
Yeah.
But what I want to say about that is that the whole kind of, again, we're looking at like the end game. Babies start learning to reach and grasp, because eventually whatever they reach and grasp is going to go into their mouth, because it begins that oral exploration phase. They're starting to desensitize their gag reflex for feeding, and then they're going to start teething. So whatever you do introduce to them for reaching and grasping should be something that's safe for them to bring to the mouth. Whether that's a spoon from the kitchen or an actual toy that you buy,
sure.
you know, babies are equally impressed by both things. But yeah, the O-ball is my favorite to start with.
Okay, cool. And then we have how to build confidence in a 15-month-old that's not walking yet.
So this is tricky, right? Because it's not just about whether or not a child is capable, but they all have different personalities and different levels of motivation and different, like, you know, risk taking. And again, we don't want to force a child to do something that they don't feel comfortable doing. So when I work with hesitant walkers, we are making very small baby steps in terms of
literally.
No pun intended, or pun intended, sorry. We want them to feel very supported. And so when I'm trying to graduate them from, you know, the support that they kind of like having, it's going to be in very, very small increments. And what I want them to have is a feeling of security, and like the goal that I'm giving them is something that they can achieve. So I'm going to sit them in my lap where they're nice and fully supported. We're going to be facing the couch, and we are literally going to be within like one step of the couch. And we are literally just going to work on them standing up out of my lap, putting their hands on the couch, and taking that one little step towards the couch until they feel comfortable. We're going to do that over and over again. We're just going to build that confidence and that security. And then I'm going to back myself up, and we're going to go a few like little inches further back. And we're going to work on it again. And we're going to build up that confidence with 2 steps. And then we're going to keep it going. I mean, that's one example of a specific activity. But the other part of what I work with in kiddos who may be a little bit more hesitant is just normalizing walking as part of our routine. So kind of start setting expectations for walking. Like, say every time we go to the bathroom or for bath time, we walk into the bathroom, and you may be supporting them, or they may be using their push walker or whatever it may be. But you just start building that into your routine. Every time we go out to the car, we're walking out to the car. Help me carry something. We're going to carry this together, and I'm going to kind of help support you as we carry whatever, something to the laundry. Build that up, build up those expectations, build up that routine, and normalizing being up on their feet and walking, just so that they can feel, you know, that security in it. Okay,
cool. And the adventure that comes with it, I guess, too.
Right, and showing them how fun it can be, and how many more things they can do when they're walking around. And they love to mimic and imitate what adults are doing at that stage. So showing them how much more they can, like, help with chores, help me sweep, help me do this, help me do that, can really help motivate, because they want to copy what you're doing. And if you show them with a little bit of support how they can, you know, be up on their feet walking to help you do certain things like that, carry the dog's bowl over to go do the dog food, or, you know, whatever it may be, that can really help that motivation piece too.
Yeah, no, that's great. We have a question that just came in. My 9.5-month-old just started trying to somersault while playing. I'm worried about her neck. Is this something I should keep intervening?
Is she doing a full somersault, or is she doing the little downward dog? So the downward dog position, basically where they have their little butts up in the air and the hands down, and they're kind of looking through their legs. Yes, is actually a good pre-walking skill. So our babies first pull up to stand on furniture, and then they may start taking their first steps. But what happens is somewhere in between there, and it may be kind of after they start walking, they need to learn how to get back up into standing without any furniture. So lots of falls are going to happen as they start walking. And so when they fall forward and catch themselves, they then need to learn how to push themselves back up into standing. So that little downward dog position can be
Makes
a
sense.
pathway to that. It also sometimes can be as they're figuring out some of their crawling mechanics, they're working on, just activating one part of it and then putting it all together.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's just that, totally normal.
Right.
I don't know a lot of 9.5-month-olds that can do actual somersaults on their own. But I wouldn't be too concerned as long as your baby is fully in charge of the movement. It's not something that's being done to them. If it's something that they're capable of doing on their own, it's most likely safe.
I imagine there's a tipping point at which they aren't in control anymore, is once they're in that somersault.
Yeah, but so positions that they can get themselves into are typically safe.
Okay. Yeah.
It's when we start imposing and putting them into a position that it could potentially be unsafe. But normally, if they can get there themselves, it's okay.
Okay. All right. Well, we got to thank you. So I guess we addressed it. All right. So we are at our time, but as previously, it was a great session, and I thank you to everyone who tuned in. I think it's dinner time where you are. It's kind of end of day here where I am, but I think it was really helpful. So hopefully we got everyone who reached out with specific questions, as well as some general overarching questions and concerns, so that everyone has some takeaway value. But Dr. Brita is available on Instagram at Progress Through Play. And then every Tuesday, with the exception of next Tuesday, we bring our Toolbox series live to Instagram, and we meet with various experts to help parents put tools in their toolbox, so that we are winging it less, and when we know better, we do better. So that's the whole point. And I think the next one up for us is with Dr. Claire O'Neill, who is a chiropractor, and she specializes in pregnant women, as well as infants and toddlers and children and adults and all kinds of stuff. But all kinds of great information from all of our experts. So thank you very much, Dr. Brita. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And we'll see you again, because there's just so much we could talk about.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, thank you, and good night to everyone. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right.
All right. Take care. See ya.
Bye.